And Shaji, when you look at the changes by the RBI in terms of the risk weightage as well as in terms of the loan to value ratio, they've kind of for the affordable segment they've actually gone ahead and said like subvention as well is there. Then you've also gone the perspective of that loan to value ratio at 30 lakh rupees.
Right.
It's kind of increased to 90% now. So from an affordable segment point of view, and as a banking perspective as well, do you see that the issue is that supply is not coming in, or the fact the consumer is not aware? Where the challenge right now in terms of the offtake? How will that offtake get increased from a
All
consumer
right. I think,
perspective?
as a lender's point of view, we have slightly different take on the whole terminology of affordability. Okay, different from a social point of view or the government's outlook point of view. Of course, that's very relevant. The way we understand affordability is maybe a 40-50% of one's income can be EMI towards or a repayment towards the property. Now, what we have done is, we have thought that because the interest rate goes down by 25 bips, the demand will pick up. We don't have that. There is no empirical data towards that direction. So what we have done is, we have worked to increase the base. In that pyramid, the large number of customers to be eligible or the affordability to get a house to expand. What we have done is, traditionally, all the leading housing finance companies and banks in India used to lend only up to 20 years. What we have done now is, we have expanded the tenure to 30 years. With, the data proved that though at the time the borrowing is done, okay, it is maybe opted for 30 years, but finally they close the loan in 7 to 8 years. So because 7-8% of increment people do get. Okay? Keeping this in mind, today we offer up to 30 years, even beyond the retirement age. So this will really expand a large market size, which is waiting for the developers to sell. I think that's a market which we can tap. That's the affordability we are talking about. The second bit is, in India, the self-employed segment actually is the largest group of earning members and not salaried. Though there's a general perception that the salaried segment is bigger than self-employed when it comes to the income earning member in the family. It's the other way around. Now, the salaried segment is over-serviced to an extent, but when it comes to self-employed segment, it is slightly under-serviced because it needs a different underwriting programs. We need to understand the segment to lend. I think companies like ours, so that many, have really started focusing on this segment. We are also hoping this will also give a lot of opportunity for the primary sales for developers. Not sure about the data, but there's a general perception that self-employed customers generally opt for a ready property or an independent house, very towards the end of property being ready. With this availability of credit to them, we are hoping they will also now start, show a lot of interest in this, in a segment, which should drive a lot of demand. So expansion of this segment and the affordability is what, financiers like us, focusing. Another little bit, we have done so that we are increasingly seeing a trend is, customers have gone through, kind of the fluctuation of interest rate. We have also seen in the past, lending rate is going as low as 6% and 7%, and then spiraling back to 11%. Now, those days, there was no longer tenor fixed rate offering. Today, many companies, including us, we offer a 10 years fixed rate. Those customers who really looking to fix the obligation fixed, those options are available. I think together all these, we are hoping the market to expand, intend to show, sales, pick up. That's what we are looking forward.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. I think Shaji brought a very interesting point that that there is a need for a lot of consumer research to go in terms of expanding the market itself from a consumer standpoint, and also trying to innovate your product, specifically from a financial perspective as well, to see that you are able to look at the down payment, look at the EMIs, look at the closure, look at the entire process of getting it done in a more smoother manner and making that entire information available as well over there. My next question is to Ananta and Sorabh both, from the perspective that when you're looking at what Shaji spoke about was from a financial perspective. like when you look at the learnings from the last 5 or 6 years in that sense, do you see that change happening within, the developers as well, as an architect and as a developer, that you find that the inquiries to kind of make the product much more different and unique, tailored to that customer segment or tailored to a specific segment as well, is that something which is kind of a thought process which has started to evolve, or is it already there?
Thank you, Neeraj. Yes, I think it's a very, very interesting question. To be honest with you, Neeraj, that, the last 5 years, I think, have taught the industry a lot of lessons which probably a decade before that, a full decade didn't teach us what we learned in the last 5 years. And like Sorabh said a little while ago, that one of the things is mixed use development. And, with land being at a premium, and lifestyles changing so fast and so dramatically, I think it's extremely important to have these mixed use developments. We are in fact doing something in Lucknow, and for the Lucknow market it's the first one where you have retail on ground level, and then you have these studios, about 500 of those studios on about 5-acre plot. And it's a product which, when we went into the market, we ourselves were wondering, how is this market going to accept it? Is it evolved enough? And pleasant surprise. I mean, there were so many NRIs, there were people from all regions of UP who actually came down, whether it was untapped markets, Kanpur, Muradabad, Banaras, Gorakhpur, Bhadoi. We were so pleasantly surprised, and that is where I think what Mr. Varghese just said, that research becomes so important. And of course we had researched it, but in spite of all the data available to you, still the moment of truth is, like he said, when the launch happens and when the result happens there. So mixed use, I feel, is a very, very important part in our lives now today. Also for this generation, the millennials live life very differently. They want a house in Gurgaon, they want a house in Kasauli, they want a weekend home somewhere else. And with easy loans, like a very, very important point, I think, which all of us must note, is that even people who are taking a 30-year loan are paying up in about 7 years. That's so interesting. So, that's the kind of investment, repeated investment that customers can do. It's very, very important to handhold your customers through that journey so that as they upgrade, you're always there for them. I think that is another new opportunity going forward, which I think we've learned from your experience. One of the things I think which 5 years back we didn't have, and I keep saying this again and again because I'm so proud of what we have now, is our beautiful airports. 5 years back, when we would land somewhere else and we would come back and we'd be so ashamed of our airports, and today, even in the smallest of towns, you have Indore, you have, any place you go, you have airports which are international standard and mixed use. So you have retail happening there, you have hotels, you have spas, you have almost everything that you can think of under one roof. And I suppose it's all doing well because it's getting more and more crowded and there's less seating and now more kiosks. So I think a lot of franchisees here are doing extremely well at these mixed-use developments, particularly I think airports and retail centers and even commercial centers are turning around. So, I think these are a few things which we must work on and build on rather than thinking traditionally the way we've been thinking, okay, this is a house and, this is how the house should be. Last week I was interacting with, one of the architects, and he was telling me, he says, in 30 square meters, they make beautiful apartments in New York. And that's an accepted norm, micro homes. I don't think have explored that yet. In Tokyo, he said 9 square meters, and I said, I hope I heard it right. But, that's another thing which we've not even thought about. I mean, how do people live there, and comfortably and luxuriously? So, the common facilities move into the common area and you have what you can manage. Also, senior living is another area which I think we need to seriously start thinking about. I mean, not that give them things which only old people need, give them fun things also. They're done with their responsibilities and they're loaded with money. So not exactly in the senior context, but make sure that their next 20, 30 years are really fun and independent. So I think these are a few things which we should be building on.
Yeah, so I think, difficult times are also very useful times because it gives you time to introspect. When I think when development was happening at a crazy pace, you forgot to actually go into a lot of details that we got the time to do now. So I think one of the important lessons which we have learned and which we've shared with a lot of our clients is that two things, as far as construction is concerned, how do you make it cheaper without really compromising on quality? And another very important aspect that I think a lot of developers are giving credence to now is the time period, So I think everybody is realizing, that time has a cost to it also. So there are lots of new ideas now being looked at, on how we can really speed up this whole construction process. People have realized that, we need to look at, we need to get away from any sort of wet forms of construction, dry walls, concrete walls, anything that can eliminate, some of the processes that took a long time are being given a lot more significance to. And I think that will also help, the industry gain momentum, now going forward, because it's these lessons that I've sort of been introspected on, which will really help in being able to deliver a product faster and definitely on par with what we were doing. The other thing is, efficiencies. And I think Ananta brought up a good point when she said that, up till now, I think all of us were just caught up in a two-dimensional game. It was just the square foot area of the apartments that we were selling or the units that we were selling, and nobody really looked at the third dimension. I think now there are people who are beginning to look at how can we really use every square inch of space, not only on the floor plan, but even in section also. So there are a lot more interesting solutions being brought up, and I think the developers will be able to demonstrate to the consumer that even if it is a 100 square meter apartment, if it's designed well and detailed well, even in the third dimension, there is a lot that you can really pack into an apartment that size. And I think it's these efficiencies which, as the efficiencies increase and they get better, you will be able to sell, smaller units, but which are as attractive and user-friendly to the consumer at the end of the day.
Sure. Atul, as a company, you ran a fantastic market campaign, there, and something which, many of us have recognized that, in a good way, there. So how do you see this, when you hear Ananta and Sorabh in terms of, saying that the consumer research is getting more stronger, the product differentiation, is coming in a better way as well now. So as an organization and as from an industry perspective, what are the few things that you think, should be done?
See, one thing is very clear. See, when you are in the market, your research has to be perfect. It has to be apt for that particular segment. See, you can run your campaign initially, and maybe you get some kind of eyeballs initially. But on a long run basis, your entire how you are serving to that particular segment you are trying to cater to is important. So not only I will say a product differentiation, but honestly the entire gambit of scheme that you're offering to your customer, to your consumer, your investor, that is very important. Like in today's market, when you see market is a bit sluggish, not many volume is there, everybody, I think most of developers are facing that kind of a heat. That time you have to brand your product in a different category, and differentiation factor has to be there. You have to bring in a lot of changes, like I think Shaji also said that we have to bring, they have expanded their loan base from 20 years to 30 years to bring maybe more affordability from in the consumer's hand. They can buy maybe a bigger product than they could buy maybe a year back. So similar way, you have to product yourself in a different manner. You have to see that because see the biggest challenge in today's market for consumer is what is that they fear that maybe we put in our money in a product and will be end up paying rental and EMI together. So you have to mix that. Maybe you bring a scheme where the customer is paying maybe at the end back end some of their payments, and they pay at the time of possession. That gives a lot of comfort to them. So your research, I will say your expertise in bringing those values to a customer is very important. So being I will say company with a lot of I will say we had an initial good run through in our campaign, so we could afford those kind of things. So we could offer all kind of these products to customer, and the attraction was huge. I think we feel sometime maybe we're fortunate to have a good run in this market also, and maybe with the indicator, I think 2016 looks much more fantastic than what was there in this year. And commercial, what Ananta said, is already there, 17% increase this year, indicator good enough for anyone to see that, because commercial is anyways a growth indicator for the economy. So once you have more commercial space grabbing this thing, so your next year definitely going to be much better. So product yourself, I will say, do a lot more exercise on your customer. Focus has to be completely customer centric. I'm sorry. You can't go beyond that.